Hello, everybody. Did you know that AutoCrit is not just an editing solution for authors anymore? Welcome back to my channel. This is USA Today best-selling dark fantasy author Katherine D. Graham, and today we are going to dive into the brand new AutoCrit 2.0, which is the second version of AutoCrit.com's website. If you've been around my channel a little while, or you've checked out my indie author behind the scenes tips and tools playlist recently, you have probably seen the original video for how I use AutoCrit as an indie author to edit my books. But AutoCrit last year in 2022 released this brand new 2.0 version of their website. And you guys, this is so much more than an editor. I can't wait to share some of the new things with you guys. So I'm going to be pulling them up and showing them to you today. Before we dive in, I just want to say that while I do work with AutoCrit occasionally doing some developmental editing type work, I am not being sponsored to do this video. I get no kickbacks from them if you click on those links or sign up for a membership. So take the advice that I share here or the tips that I share here as solely from my personal opinion and not reflecting AutoCrits in any ways as a writer to another writer. If you've never heard me talk about AutoCrit before, I came to them, one, because they saved me a lot of money. They saved me $1,600. I came to them as a paid member before I ever worked with their team, and I loved it so much that when I got an opportunity to upgrade to lifetime, I went all in, and I am a paid lifetime member myself. And I absolutely really feel like this software made my book a better book just from the editing front. So let's dive in about what has changed, what's new, and how the new version of AutoCrit is going to improve other aspects of writing as well. Let me share my screen here. Here we go. So I'm in incognito mode just so you can get a glimpse of what it would look like looking at this for the very first time. As you can see, if you've been an AutoCrit member in the past or you saw my last video, the entire website looks totally different. And I love the flip ebook. But now, in this 2.0, they have brought in a lot of features that were separate before or in separate places before, I guess, and made it very streamlined, which I'll show you as well, which I love. For example, you still have the classic editing software under the writer's desk, and now there is also drafting and plotting software, like the ability to make notes and actually write the book in the online portal. And I have another video that I'll be doing next week for you guys where you can actually see me write my real book in this portal and see how that works out since it's online based. The community that used to be on Facebook, and there is still a Facebook community, but it's not as active. The community that used to be on Facebook, that used to be in Mighty Networks, is now here in this site. So you can stay connected with the people. And the AutoCrit community is something special. It really is. If you heard me on my video with Quill and Cup last week, you know how vital finding a good community is to a writer journey, at least in my personal opinion, in my personal experience. This can be a lonely journey, but it doesn't have to be. And when you get your AutoCrit membership, you have access to that community right here, and community events and community challenges, and it's just great. And then AutoCrit still offers their academy, which is writing courses for specific genres, like they've done fantasy and horror. And then they offer author services of all different kinds, from first chapter critiques to pitch appraisals and stuff like that. But now the dashboard for those things are right here in AutoCrit.com. You don't have to go sign into a different platform. You don't have to communicate exclusively through email. So this is just great. It's been a learning curve, but a good learning curve. Don't be intimidated. I know it looks flashy and everything, but don't be intimidated. So let me switch my screen for you so that you can see my actual logged in screen. Pull it up here, maybe, possibly. Aha. Technology, right? Here we go. Okay. Sorry about that. So this is the dashboard, and as you can see, I'm logging in for the first time in a while here. You guys are seeing this stuff as I see it. Welcome to AutoCrit. Look at the penguin. Let's just take a few moments to get acquainted with all the writing tools at your fingertips. And it's got a tutorial now. So Writer's Desk, as I said, that's where you're going to plan, write, and edit. And then the calendar, events that you have, clubs and things like that will be up at the top. The community that I mentioned is here on the left-hand side. And the academy, if you're going to enroll in any courses, and then all your author services will be there. So there's also a tour inside the Writer's Desk, which I will get to in just a second. But I want to point out here how much I love this hub. Like you can see, February 28th, Character Connection finalists live. That's awesome. So there's challenges that go on very regularly with AutoCrit, and you get to push yourself in different aspects of your writing. Sometimes it's short stories, sometimes it's world building, sometimes it's, hey, destination unknown, which means you're going to start this crazy challenge and just see where it ends up and push yourself to become a better writer. Then there's blog posts on here. Join the Gothic fiction class. Ooh. Get accountability within the community. Here's your welcome to AutoCrit 2.0 post. And this is Daniel, the Daniel of AutoCrit here, finding your story type by the ending. Being a pantser, that might be really helpful for me. Character chemistry workshop. So all of these things are right here on the hub. I have not been in a while to set up my calendar, but I can click here and say, oh, here's the calendar, and just scroll through all the different events. Fantasy Club, Sci-Fi Club, Accountability Club, so much great stuff. All right, so I know most of you are coming here to see what's changed with the editor, right? Because most of us who have been in AutoCrit before are very comfortable with the old editor. I have not added a new file in here, but I have one that I need to add. Before I do that, though, you can see here, they did pull over my previous files for me. There they are. So if you're an AutoCrit member already and you do have files, those should have been pulled over. If for some reason they're not there, I highly recommend reaching out to the support team. There's a little bubble here in the bottom right corner of the team. You just click that bubble, and they're always very happy to help. If you're brand new to AutoCrit, then you don't have to worry about that. So here we go. You can see here's my daily word count, 6,000 words a day. You can set your own goal. So you can say, I want to write, in my case, I actually try to write 5,000 words a day, but you can try to write 500 words, 1,000 words, whatever it is you normally write every day. And it tells you what percentage you are to being there. So this is new over here. Now you can either upload a file you already have, do a quick copy and paste, which is what we're actually going to do today because I have an unformatted file where I started writing Vanguard of Justice, the third volume in the Lord's Gambit series, or a brand new file. Let me back up here for a second with a blank document where you just start writing. Open it up, fellow pantsers, or just start writing right off the bat. And not just pantsers too. You can start plotting, I guess, too in there. So quick copy and paste is what I'm going to click. And I'm going to paste what I have written of Vanguard of Justice. You guys get sneak peeks, spoilers of everything. Now, one thing that I've heard is that formatting, like paragraphs and stuff, didn't stay when people did it in here. But as you just saw, I put it in here live. This was blank before. It kept all of my indentions, which I love. Untitled files. So up here, you can add a new chapter. And again, I will get into actually writing in here later on. But there are so many new tools here now. This is really amazing. I'm using Google Chrome, by the way. Sometimes people's browsers will play a part. But if you look up here at this toolbar, you've got formatting options here now, like paragraph styles, line heights, underlines, italic, bold, fonts. All of this is new, and it's going to make exporting it so much easier before you upload it. You can align left, center, right. Go up here to the chapter, for example. Let's see if I can get this. Yay! Yeah, highlighted it and just clicked align center, and there it went. So this is really, really helpful. Now, I will say, as an editor, that sometimes you don't want to waste your time with all this formatting until after you've finished what some people lovingly call the garbage draft, the draft that you know you're going to butcher before anybody else sees it. I'm one of those people too, where I don't even usually put indents in it anymore. It's just easier to fix it in post. And there's actually ways to do that when you're exporting in here, which we'll get to at another time. Also, the reports that people are used to seeing, if you've used AutoCrit in the past, are up here at the top. But if you're new to AutoCrit, AutoCrit has a bunch of editing reports that you can use as you're writing now, or still the old-fashioned put your completed file in there. But so you can click summary, run summary report. Now this is very short. I've only don't even have a full chapter in here. 2,000 words, I think. So yeah, 2011 words up here on this word counter. So here's the category comparisons. Now right now it's set to general fiction, but I can change that to my genre if I want to. So I'm going to click the edit button. As I said, I could pick a specific author on here. Like I know Stephen King is in here. George R.R. Martin is in here, who is one of my comp authors actually for this current series that I'm working on. So comp being comparable authors. So I'm going to have it just compare mine to George R.R. Martin, or you can change it to just fantasy in general, or whatever your genre is. And there's just a great, here we go. So the overall score, okay, isn't too bad. 84 is actually a pretty good score. This score is basically telling you how similarly within the genre, if I'm going to try my best to summarize this for you, how similarly to other books in this genre is yours. You're never going to get 100. So don't worry about hitting 100. It's not a pass-fail score. Even authors who write different books don't get 100% on their own books. Really, most of the traditional authors who I've seen run through AutoCrit during the What's the Score lives that you can catch on AutoCrit's YouTube have scored in the low to mid 80s, some in the high 80s. So that's fine. You want to meet the expectations for your genre that readers are going to have. But you don't want to lose your own voice. So, for example, George R.R. Martin's slow-paced paragraphs for his works are, this number on top. Meanwhile, I have no slow-paced paragraphs yet. So if I'm pitching my book to George R.R. Martin fans and targeting them with my ads, I've got to make sure that we actually write similarly enough for this to be a good comp author, if that makes any sense. If someone wants slow, rambling, and George R. R. Martin's not necessarily slow, but slower, more wordy than I am, maybe I need to pick somebody else, or I need to go in and make some of my sentences longer. This is not typically an issue of mine, though. I'm only 2,000 words in, and as the book goes on, I'm sure those slower paragraphs will pop up. Average words per paragraph is shorter than his. Again, not saying that's bad, just saying if you're going for this is different there. Paragraphs by word count. This is actually pretty standard here. Most of your word count will be shorter on the top, upside down waterfall. And then you should have very few that are in the 100 plus range for the readability's sake. Because mostly you want a new paragraph every time the purpose of the paragraph changes, from describing setting to action to dialogue. But that's the editor and me taking over. Average words per sentence, I actually am a little longer in my sentences than George R. R. Martin. So do I want to do some shorter sentences? Am I okay with it being 4 words over? And then sentences by word count. I have a huge issue in my first drafts with run-on sentences. I'm not even going to lie. I commonly have to fix that when I'm drafting. But knowing that lets me just go right here to this nifty little run report button, hop on over to the editor, click on that middle tier, and then I can scroll down and it will have highlighted all of the sentences in that tier and made it extremely extremely easy to say, okay, here is my problem. Here it is. Lots and lots of really long sentences. Where in the world is a sentence that's over 40 words long? I'll take that one off. And so what I did was I clicked on that middle one to take it off. I clicked on 40 plus, and now I'm just going to look through for the highlighting right here. And yeah, this sentence is too long. So I know that I can then go in, put a period here, do a slight rewriting in the file, how she wished that the edge in her voice could slice through his skin and bone and let him bleed out on the marble floor right there in Mary Bell's room. So that's that really long one. And then there's another really long one here. So knowing that this is my issue, having that reporting right there, able to fix it for me before my proofreader ever has to see it or my copy editor ever has to see it, is really helpful, because this is an automated tool. It is extremely helpful. It's fantastic. It catches so much stuff. But even then, there are things you need human eyes for. So while this AutoCrit keeps me from hardly ever having to pay for a line edit. And sometimes even skipping a copy edit, depending on how clean the book is when I put it in here. When I put the Valid Twisted Fate in AutoCrit the first time, back in the first version, it caught over 3,600 errors that I could knock out before it ever went to an editor, so the editors could focus on the things that were really tricky and that actually mattered the most. So yeah, the summary report is there. You can use it to scroll through, get an idea for how your story measures up to the genre or author you have selected. And I just want to show you how much this can change. If I take George R. R. Martin out and I put in here fantasy, my score is going to change, and that will be very different. What it shows in a fantasy will be very different than what it would show in a horror, for example. So keep that in mind, that it's not the pass fail. It's what are your average readers expecting for this genre, and are you meeting up to those expectations? So that's all that I'll say on the scoring. People hyperfixate on that score. It's a useful tool to help you know that aspect of writing to your genre. But outside of that, you don't really need that score to use this reporting. You can come in here, start your file, write, and say, hey, let's check dialogue. Let's check my dialogue tags. And just click on dialogue tags and see I have way less said versus asked compared to the norm and fantasy up here. And I can go through and say, hey, why do I have so many whispers? I have an issue occasionally putting in dialogue tags that are not tags. So if you are one of those people that puts a comma at the end of your sentence and then instead of ending it with some kind of verbalized dialogue tag, probably time to change that comma to a period and just get rid of it. For example, no, she whirled down the lane. Okay, whirled has nothing to do with how she said no. So in that case, I don't need a dialogue tag there and I can just put a period there. But let's go over the reports very briefly. I won't run all of them. The summary report is the one I showed you with the score. Combination report. Here we go. We'll show combinations of things. Adverbs, showing versus telling, which are basically these other reports that you can run sort of on your own. Pacing and momentum is one of my big big things that need revisions. So pacing and momentum, I have sentence variation. That's the one I showed you where the majority of my sentences were longish. Then the overall pacing of the piece is right here. This is how many slow-paced paragraphs you have. Then paragraph variation. Do all of your paragraphs look like they're the same length? Or are they varied to make it easier for the readers to read? Chapter variation. How long are your chapters? I typically try to keep my chapters about 5,000 words a chapter because I write epic fantasy. But if you write, for a young adult, or you write a non-epic fantasy or one of the other genres, you might not want your chapters to be 5,000 words long. The average chapter is 2,000 to 3,000 words long, I think. And the average novel starts at 50,000 words, I believe, to 60,000 words. So that can, of course, be longer depending on your genre. I'm not going to get into a debate with anybody on that. But you want some semblance of order to your chapters, in my opinion, as a reader. I read a lot. Books where all the chapters are 15 pages long to 18 pages long, or 15 to 20, are easier to read for some reason than books that have one 5-page chapter and one 50-page chapter and one 15-page chapter. So this will help you sort of make sure you've got some kind of pacing in your chapters. Dialogue. Here you go. Here's a report that shows all your dialogue. There will be a lot of dialogue here. Dialogue tags, which you've already seen. Are your tags actually tags? Do you need to change some of your non-said and asks to said and asks? Adverbs in your dialogue. Thankfully, I don't have as much of an issue with that. Like, she whispered softly, she screamed loudly, he said victoriously. Those would be adverbs. And a lot of times that can be an indicator of a newer writer or a writer who's writing for young adult, because there are stronger words you can choose. Instead of screamed loudly, you can say she screeched, she wailed. Instead of whispered softly, you can do that without the adverb by breathed. She breathed. Or she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind, or something like that. Just be careful about not falling into purple prose, which is where you talk just for the sake of talking. Then the strong writing report is here. Adverbs is one that I see a lot of people talk about how many adverbs do you have compared to the normal for your genre. This is one where having the right genre really helps. So for the length of the book I have put in here, I have used barely and longer and nearly and abruptly a lot. And sometimes these are necessary, and sometimes you can replace them. A barely touched page. Skip down to the next one. And I'm doing this skipping by clicking on this word in case anybody's asking. 3 ships. Yeah, I may not want to keep that one. Yeah, little things to go through and fix here. Now, over on the side, I want to point something out. Let me re-highlight this barely for a second. Now, highlight barely. I'm going to click thesaurus on the right-hand side, and it will give me all these other potential synonyms to replace that word with. And if I clicked on it, for example, 3 ships barely visible with their aft to the sunset. And that should be afts, by the way. But scarcely, simply, slightly. We'll just change it to hardly for the sake of this. Here, type hardly visible with their afts to the sunset because there's more than one ship. All right. Then passive indicators. And like I said too, this does not replace a human element. So if you liked barely there, you can go back in and put it back in. You don't have to make these changes. This is going to help you look through and consider, do I really have to have that word there? Or is there another way that I could say this that would make this a stronger sentence? So passive indicators, these are usually words that you really don't need, that you can skip over depending on the situation. Even this downpour could not wash away the queen's blood, which now, because this was genuinely a past tense sentence in this situation, I do need this had here because it's not a tense or a passive indicator, it's a tense indicator. She dashed for the hidden crack in the castle wall that she had slipped through over and over. So that's the same thing there. Just making sure that these are ones you actually wanted. Who was she to question plans the lords had put in place? So if I go back though, here we go. She frantically scrambled for the wand she used to channel her focus these days. It was just a blank word I didn't really need there to get the same meaning across, and it just helps it read smoother without it. If you don't need it to indicate that this is a past tense statement within a past tense book, then a lot of these could be taken out. Tense consistency. Here we go. Tenses. Making sure that your tenses are what you want them to be. This is a past tense third person story, Vanguard of Justice, which means that the only time there should be present tense or future tense is when it's in dialogue. Everything else should be past tense. So I can go and click on am. I am sure your advisors. Okay, that's dialogue. Has, with the order has given, dialogue. Have. How much could she have to forget anyway? That's not actually the tense there. She would have almost pitied. That makes sense even in past tense. But the flaw you have introduced, that's dialogue. If he could have killed me, he. Maribel might have been young. So this is one where I could actually take this out. Maribel was young, but she was right about one thing. That's what that should have been. How much could she have to forget? So yeah, you can basically go through, make sure that you mend to put it in the tense that you put it in. And then fix the ones that you didn't. So 2 wills in dialogue, 3 in dialogue, 4 in dialogue, golden. It's just a quick way of pulling out things that may have slipped through the cracks. Showing versus telling is a lot of us authors issue points. These are sentences where you could potentially summarize in a shown way a sentence instead of literally telling the reader the sentence. Even this downpour could not wash away the queen's blood. In that case, that's a stylistic choice. I'm leaving that there on purpose, even though it is sort of telling. It keeps my voice in the story. Slipping in the mud and puddles, seeking out the one place where this child could hide. If the remaining royals survived the night, they could easily return for their child. How much could she have to forget anyway? So yeah, most of these are ones that I've kept for the sake of the story or because of the context, but others are definitely more showy versus telly. Only those who came looking for the orphanage with an image of it in their mind's eye would see it for what it really was. She could practically see the greasy wheels of his mind turning. So just take your time, go through these and ask yourself, is this a telling or showing sentence? And I can get more into that when I show you guys how I write my book in here next week. Cliches. These are sentences that are typically used as cliches, and you have to ask yourself, do you want them or using them on purpose? Through over and over again throughout her 70 years of service to the throne. I'm keeping that one. But I do try, because I write epic fantasy, to knock out modern cliches a good bit if it didn't make sense in my head for the time frame. I don't have any redundancies. Yay. A redundancy is where you use the exact same phrase, the exact same word, very close together. And then unnecessary filler words are still right here. These are words that you use. Sometimes you use them on purpose for emphasis. So it says they recommend I remove about 4 uses of the word even. This is a 2,000 word excerpt from Vanguard of Justice, and I use even 7 times. Even this downpour. Even one for children of noble birth. The child had not even seen her 4th spring. Even without turning to so, and they're right here close together. So I have to ask myself, which of these can I rework to make this read a little better, and do I want to? So for example, here, even without turning to the bloated man, she could imagine his malicious smile. I don't have really any sentences beginning with pronouns around here at a glance. Yeah, so I could actually start the sentence with, she did not need to turn to the bloated man to imagine the malicious smile spreading across his red face. Word choice, initial pronouns and names. This is what I was just talking about. How many of your sentences begin with either an initial pronoun or a name? And I have worked very, very hard to make my sentences not all begin with so-and-so does this, so-and-so does that. It leads to a very telling feeling story. Sentence starters. Here's more of them. Other sentence starters that I use that are not actual nouns. In this case, most of mine are and, but, if, only, then, while. Starting with a lot of prepositions. POV consistency. This is a third person book. I don't need first or second person indicators. So I need to avoid sentences like, you can only imagine, or you could only imagine. That used to be a very commonly used style in epic fantasies, and now it's sort of dying out. So I don't need those. Instead, I need to make it, she could barely imagine. Freya could only dream, instead of you could only dream, you could only imagine. And then some of these are not that way at all. Some of these are not POV. They're just used in dialogue, so I can just skip right over them. But the flaw you have introduced. So it's making sure that I'm not switching like into second person. I, me, my. Because this book was originally written in first person, I actually make a lot of use of these. For example, the Cristinia book, which just came out, Monk of Death, it had to be completely overhauled from first to third person, and this report made that a lot easier. But even then, it can slip in when you're not looking at it. Generic descriptions. These are usually, well, exactly what they sound like. Descriptions that could be stronger. So, not talking about look like a rundown empty stable. Look at what happened to my parents. That's fine. But, for example, looks cheap, looks expensive, looks tired. Instead of doing that, showing us more would be helpful. Like dark circles were under her eyes. She was swaying on her feet. Drives home the image in our head that she's tired without saying she looked tired. Or she could tell from the expression on his face that he was blah, blah, blah. Personal words and phrases. I have not set any up here. There is a place where you can just click right here on the cog and say, here's personal words and phrases that I want in this list. And if you go down to customize word list, which is the cog on the bottom right corner, you can actually put words to exclude from reports, like fake character language words like I have in my books, or character names. So in this book, I have Freya. So I'm going to add her name here. Maribel. Add her name. Got Erwin. So you can just list, the people in there. When you're done, click done. And that will also help them not necessarily show up as typos. Power words. Words that drive home feeling. What feeling do you want readers to walk away from your book with? Encouragement and fear right there at the top is like, what a duo. And here are the words that are driving those feelings. Repetition is still here. Repeated words, like we said earlier. Word frequency, phrase frequency, readability. Readability is really just in case you're, in my opinion, now I'm not a middle grade or young adult, but in my opinion, it would be helpful to make sure that what you're writing fits the age that you want. When I went to writing class, we were taught that you should write on a 4th or 5th grade level. I think 6th grade being the highest, because you want to write your books so that they're accessible to everyone, unless you're writing to a higher education audience or something like that, a textbook. So this will pull out. Here are these words that are a little longer, and you can catch yourself if you're like very verbose, like my husband, who uses really long, really interesting words sometimes. And I'm like, do you even know what that means? So you can look through here and say, okay, is there any words here that stand out off this page as something that a 3rd grader or 4th grader might have trouble with, if that's the group you're aiming toward, or the reading level you want to keep it at, exasperated. Having some is fine. Having tons and tons, maybe you need to think about just a little bit. All right, so that is the editing. As you can see, the editing is still all there. It has, honestly, I feel, become easier to do. I didn't have to reload the page every single time. If you've seen me do previous reports, you knew that I had to, like in the old version, run the report, make the changes according to that report, and click save after every single one. And now it looks like I can just do them right here. Now there is still a save button. Ta-da! So we're actually going to save this as a new project. This is going to be Vanguard of Justice. Draft 1. Save. Ta-da! Saved. And now I can add chapters. This is new. This is new. So if I finish chapter 1, I can go through here and say chapter 2. Save. Very excited. Let's see. So other aspects that are still here, the export button is still here. You can export your file in a .x, export it with the highlights that the reports gave you. You can export it as an RTF or a TXT file. If you're a Google Docs user, you can save it to a .x. You don't need Microsoft Word to save it as a .docx, and then you can drag and drop the file into your Google Drive, and it should convert it to a Google Doc for you automatically. So that's really helpful. Same thing, if you want to upload it into here from Google, go back for a second because I know sometimes people want to do that. You want to upload it into here. You can upload it as a .x, .rtf, or .txt. You can save it from your Google Docs file, download it as one of these, and then drag it from your downloads folder right here into drag and drop your file here, or click to select it. And it'll open the window. You just select it, and then it will read it. You don't have to you do not have to have Microsoft Word in order to upload it, I guess is my point here. So yeah, then coming over here, you can create a bookmark here, go to a bookmark so you don't lose your place. Like you're editing, you want to come back to it, you can just put create bookmark here. Spelling and grammar, thesaurus, text reader. If you guys don't use text reader, this is a great tool because it will pick up stuff that you didn't realize you needed. So where her empty cauldron sat on a hook beneath her grimoire. So you can highlight a section and you can click the speaker, and let's see if it actually picks up or you can hear it. Hold on.
Where her empty cauldron sat on a hook beneath her grimoire. Flipping through the pages, she searched and searched until a barely touched page peeked out at her. A spell for...
So you can catch things that maybe your eye corrected, because this is our book. There's a thing called page blindness where we autocorrect errors. It's another editing term, I guess. And it really needs a fresh set of eyes, and sometimes it needs a set of ears for us to hear what mistakes we made. You can change the versions of the voices here. So you can click on each one.
This is an example of my voice. This is an example of my voice.
This is an example of my voice.
And find the one that you like. There's also US and UK voices. Going back down to settings for a second. Sorry, wrong version of settings. There's US and UK versions of the editors.
Where her empty cauldron sat.
All right.
Where her empty cauldron sat on a hook beneath.
Stop that. Going down here, you can highlight dialogue here or not. And then your editor theme can now be changed to dark mode. I personally do not like writing in dark mode, but my husband loves it. So here it is, dark mode. Minimal will give you less to have to look at. And then the page view normal is all available there. We talked about the settings right here, customizing your word list and all of that right here. And then up here at the top is the last new feature, and that is notes. So you can write yourself a note on the file. For example, come back and name the maid in chapter 1. And then it sticks there. So I'm going to close that and reopen notes, and it's still there. Like, you could come back as you're going through things and add things in. Don't forget to do this. Do we want to keep that? Just really, really convenient. So yeah, that is the AutoCrit thing. Now, if you want to do a file, see down here where it says draft 1, 2,109 words, you can just click continue writing and it will reopen the file that you were working on. I'm very excited about that. It'll tell you how many total files you have, what projects you have. You can save those. Like, here's my Vanguard of Justice file. Here's the last time I worked on it, how much time I spent on it with you guys, 5 total minutes ago. Yeah, last edited 5 minutes ago. And then there's the community, which I said now. You just click on community and it takes you right here into the community forums. The academy, where you can sign up for some courses, author services. So yeah, I really love that everything is now in one convenient place. And you have profiles here, so I can click on my little profile. And you can see I've got my NaNoWriMo 2022. I need to update that. And then my author logo next to me, and my author name. You can see the groups that I'm in, connections. You can put your website down here, your little bio. I mean, it's all right here. And it's just a great place to keep up with. Like, here's documents that you've made available for the public, which I have not done yet. Forums, photos, all this stuff. And it's just like getting that community right there on your homepage. So that is it. That is what the new version of AutoCrit looks like. I will be going into more detail on how I am actually drafting and showing you guys whether or not that's a smooth process in my next video next week, as I said. So subscribe to my channel if you would like to see that. If you're interested in knowing more about AutoCrit and the reporting aspect and how I use it as an indie author, that would be the one to come to in a few weeks, where I finish it and I'm like heavy duty editing. But really, I'm really excited about the new program. I hope you are as well. If you would like to try it out, you can try AutoCrit for free with the AutoCrit Free Forever membership. You won't have access to everything, but there are also pro memberships at $30 a month. But try the free version. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a free forever membership. You can see whether you like it, whether it's a good fit for your writing style. And yeah, I'll put that link in the description box for you guys. I'd love to hear any questions or comments you have. I can get those over to the AutoCrit team if you'll leave them in the comments box. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day.